And welcome back. As we go ahead and look at another example of programming with C, let's go ahead and do a simple example with an array. So here I have a method called addArray, and all I want to do is add up some value and then possibly have it print out. Since I set this up as a void method, that means that I shouldn't expect it to do whatever I want to do inside here. So let's just create an integer. Let's call this num, and we'll set it equal to 0. And then what we want to do is add up each of those values in that array. So we'll say for int I equals 0. And let's just say, well, I is less than, since we know that this is a defined length, I'm just going to go ahead and use 4. Even though, yes, we could use other ways to make this better, I'm just going to go ahead and, for simplicity purposes, go ahead and define that as the length I know is being passed in. And then let's go ahead and just simply have it equal num is equal to num plus, and what we want to do, of course, is get the value at that index. Now, currently, I have not defined the name of this array, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to call this just int r, and so it'll be size 4. So now I can, of course, pull in whatever value is currently at I. That should work there. And then what I want to do is, after it's done its adding, let's just go ahead and do a printf command and just say the sum of the numbers in the array is, and then let's just go ahead and, for our purposes, add a tab character so we can just make sure we have that space in there, or we can you just leave that space here. And what do we want this to be? Well, since this is an integer, we're going to need to, of course, add in that integer value. And what is it going to be stored in? It was stored in num. And now that this is, of course, created as a function, we can come back here to our main. And right now, this, of course, function is taking in user input. But let's just go ahead and change this, though, a little bit different. So let's just say printf, let's get user input, and just say, please enter 4 numbers to put in an array. Let's be more specific. Let's just say for integers. There we go. And so now, instead of this being defined with these numbers, I'm just going to go ahead and just have this be int numbers. And I know, of course, I'm going to want that to be size 4, so we can leave that if we want there. And now, instead of this being a printf command, we're going to make this into a scanf. And we're simply going to read in a number. And what we want to do is store that in that value, right? We want to, before we do this, let's take that line out and add our ampersand. And we need to, of course, have a variable that's going to store the input. So let's just call this input num. Now, input num doesn't exist currently, so we need to, of course, add that here. So we'll just say int input num. And we'll initialize that to 0 just to make sure everything's happy compiler side. And now that that, of course, is inputted here, we'll just then go ahead and say my numbers of I is equal to, in this case, it would be input num. That, of course, should fill that array. And then what we want to do after that is call this function up here, add array, open close parentheses, semicolon. Of course, we need to put a parameter in because if we look, we have a parameter here. So I'm just going to enter in my numbers. Let's go ahead and give this a quick run. All right, and so there's no error, so we didn't forget anything. So let's go ahead and enter this in. Let's just go ahead and do real simple. Let's do 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, and so we get the sum of the numbers in the array is 10. Perfect. And that would work excellent if we run it one more time. Let's just go ahead and now let's do something a little different. Let's do 5, 4, 9, and 0. All right, and we get the sum of the numbers is 18. Excellent. So again, a quick demonstration there of how we can quickly create a method with an array. So we can see here, here's us using user input to fill an array. Here we are using a array as a function parameter. And here we are, of course, invoking that function with that array in mind.